Hello Struckpup, today I'll be bringing you a Grim Down build for the Ritualist class, which is a combination between Shaman and a Necromancer. This is not the most effective build, it's not like a meta build that could get you very far. It won't probably be able to do shard 70, 75, etc. with ease. It is more of a build on the fun side. It can do shard 50, 55, 60, I even managed to complete 65, of course with a lot of troubles, because the build doesn't have survivability for ourselves, it focuses on survivability for the pets. And since I like having many minions, I included something like the skeletons, which are not really necessary. The main point about the build is our pets can get 90% resistances with this setup. So if you want to use it as a base to rework something else, feel free to. But as you'll see later on, I'll be showing you how shard 50 feels with this build. Currently, I've done something like this with the devotions. So for the pets, we have this thing, I've attached it to Devouring Swarm, and this thing I've attached to Ravenous Surge. You can just switch them around. Those skills I don't use for damage, I use them to reduce my target's resistances. This one I've attached to the White Fiend, which has around 3 seconds cooldown with this setup. So this is another resistance reduction for poison and acid. This little bit of bonuses for us and the pets. The same here and the same goes here. This one I just needed some points, some blue points, and I thought this would be worth taking for the pierce resistance, but you can try and work something else around. The main things are we're using this for the pets to taunt and to get some offensive and defensive ability. Then we're also using this for a lot of resistances for us and our pets. I did not get Light of Empyrean, but we're getting 5% maximum pet resistances from this, and from this offhand we're getting another 5%. So when I max out all my buffs and debuffs and so on, my pets do end up getting 1769 damage. I've seen it yesterday while streaming. And something else important would be, of course, we have a lot of physical damage converted to acid for us from this place. Then we're converting the pet's physical damage to acid from those rings. Then we are getting Ancestral Ward. It does give us some extra damage absorption, but it's not the best thing. We also have some damage absorption from Fiend's Flesh, which stacks up multiple times. And as you can see, we are focusing mostly on the Necro side, and in particular on the White Fiend and the skills attached to it. But since I do like having skeletons and so on, I decided to just get that as well. As you can see, this set is also giving minus 20% poison and acid resistance to Devouring Swarm. So with this current setup I've got, with all the pets and everything that can reduce my target's resistances, I'm kind of getting something around minus 130 something total to the poison resistances of the target, of which around 60 I think is reduction to all types of resistances. There are alternative builds, so there are alternative builds where you could just remove the skeletons. And you could see the Grim Down link in the description, the Grim Calc link if you want to see the theory crafting. But yeah, you can just stop using the skeletons and put all those points towards something like Primal Bond. And just focus on using White Fiend together with Briathorn and Eldritch Talon, and it will not be a bad choice. It will not be a bad choice, it will also be a decent substitute, so keep that in mind. This, as I said, I'm only using for some extra damage, not damage but poison resistance reduction, and to proc Shepherd's Call. This thing, it gives 2% HP healed per second, that's why I've decided to take Wendigo totem. You could just go on without it if you're not using skeletons. You probably might not need it, because most of the other pets are pretty tanky as it is. If you want to go for a more damage-oriented setup in regards to the devotions, you can probably get rid of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. You can go something like 1, 2, 3, 4 for some extra healing for yourself and the pets, and a bit of damage every now and then. Like if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, then you can do 1, 2, or you can also gonna have to rework the devotions here. 3 of wife does need 20 blue. We have 19. So you might want to remove this one and maybe take something like this one or the compass. The compass is always a nice choice. So yeah, reducing the lizard and investing one extra point on this won't be a bad choice. And let's see, this requires 7 yellow, so you won't require 8 yellow, but this requires 10. So if you decide that you don't need the taunt, you can even invest some points all the way to like 1, 2, 3 points here. It's gonna give you some chaos resist, some damage to the pets. If you want some more resist for the pets, you can go here, or you can go here for some more damage, offensive ability. So play around with the build if you don't like it, the way it's set up. I do think this is very nice to be set up on the White Fiend. If you think you need more survivability for yourself, get Giant's Butt. And this build actually does need survivability to push harder than 60, 65, or even 65 was very difficult and took a lot of dying. So for survivability I would suggest Giant's Butt or Wayward Soul, or both if you think you can sacrifice enough of the bonuses for the pets, like those things and those things. You can probably rework the build and get giants, but maybe if you don't complete the behemoth just to get the giants, but it would be fine. And Wayward Soul is also a nice skill for survivability. Another thing, you might want to have the Twin Fangs. Twin Fangs, you could attach it to a pet such as like the Briathorn or the Eldritch Talon, and this would just make them tanky. So if you're not using a Ray Skeletons build, it would be nice to just probably attach Twin Fangs to a Briathorn or the Eldritch Talon, since this one you can keep respawning, so it doesn't matter if this one dies, but those two you would need to keep alive. While leveling, I would suggest strongly to first rush Shepherd's Call. It would really help while leveling. Some people were asking me how to go on about leveling such a build. So Shepherd's Call is great to rush that. You can attach this to the skeletons if you're using skeletons while leveling, then you can rework the devotions later. And you can attach this to the Briathorn while leveling. They're all good devotions. I would suggest getting this first, then later on, as you get more red and green, you can try and grab this one. It would also help a lot with this Eldritch Hound, which also can reduce the target's resistances and offensive ability. As you start needing yellow points, you can invest in the Panther and the Lion. And when you start seeing your pets dying too much to poison and acid, such as the Malmud zones, you might want to invest into this devotion. I had to rework the devotions while leveling up multiple times, and at the end, in order to make sure I take this one and this one, I kind of had to take those. Alternatively, instead of this, you can take the Viper. They're giving the same amount of points, 2 red, 3 blue, for the same amount of investment for 4 points. It just depends on what you prefer more as bonuses. Key things to notice, this could also be a decent thing while leveling up. If you're wondering where to put some points, this is a nice choice. Another thing that might be a nice choice would be this, but it's giving mostly bleeding oriented bonuses. and elemental resist for the pet. So this is more of a for a bleeding build. You can also do something like this. This would highlight all the different nodes where you have pet damage and pet offensive ability and everything else related to pet stats. So this is another thing for a bleeding build, not the perfect for us because we're using poison and acid. This is something not so bad, but it really is not needed for us. But you might want to invest some points in it while leveling and just rework the devotions later. This is amazing though, this gives a lot of bonuses, so while leveling I would suggest going for it. This is also a great new devotion. Also I did use the Hawk for a while, so it's something else to keep in mind, and this is also nice for poison damage. It also gives you a skill if you want to complete it to attach to something. Another good thing for a bleeding build, not for this one, would be How of Mod Grogan. Not a bad choice. Wolverine also not a bad choice. While leveling up, just play around with the devotions, but the final setup is this. And if you want a more survivability oriented setup, you can just remove this, remove the skeletons, put 4 points here, rework the devotions so you can get those here. And then eventually maybe you might try replacing some of those resistances here and reworking the devotions in such a way that you can take some points off of this staff or some points off of this Eldritch Sun. For healing, as I said, Giant from the Behemoth devotion or Wayward Soul are nice choices if you're having troubles with healing. The Turtle is also a nice thing for survivability for yourself, the Turtle Shell. Although it's a very long cooldown for 500 damage absorption. Of course that's the level 1 values, not the level 20. So this was it in regards to how you can go about while leveling. Make sure while leveling to first rush Briathorn. I would strongly suggest rush Briathorn, get it and start maxing it. Just put maybe 1 point on Mocked Grogan's path and keep maxing out Briathorn. For the first few levels you would really benefit from having Briathorn at least level 10. Maybe stop at level 10, then put some points to get 1 point in Heart of the Wild if you need HP. Then as soon as you have this at level 10, maybe you can start and put some points into Skeletons. It only requires 1 point into Necromancer, so you can even get that very early in the game, just as a 1 pointer. But don't put points until you have at least 10 in Briathorn maybe. The other choice would be to just get 10 points into Skeletons first instead of worrying about Briathorn. But Briathorn is more tanky, so the pets from rare Skeletons might not be as good as him for the early game. Later on, as you reach maybe level 40, 45, something like that, you can start putting more points into Heart of the Wild and max it out eventually. Keep this as just a 1 pointer, it would help a lot. Then next off, when you get some more skill points, you can try and put some points into Spectral Binding. Don't worry about this for now, just try putting some points into this and eventually try moving on towards Summon White Fiend. While leveling up you won't be needing Ravenous Earth because you probably won't have that much poison oriented setup. So while leveling up, Bone Harvest is a good choice. If you find a good weapon with savagery bonuses, you might want to use it in maybe Veteran, maybe in the early Elite. The same goes for Primal Strike. Some items to note would be, let me quickly show you, the Wild Cover set has some decent bonuses that could help not your pets but yourself do some damage in the first few difficulties. And the axe is something I found while leveling and it did help me a lot for a while. The Wild Cover's axe, I'm not sure where I put it, but let me check quickly. There should be a version of it. I think I only have a mythical version, no, empowered version, but it's nice. It does give some primal strike bonuses and some physical damage converted to lightning, so it would help your DPS while leveling. Here is some of the gear I was wearing while leveling. So if you find mythical touch of the, not mythical, but the regular touch of the everlasting growth, use it. Something else, regular circlet of Great Serpent is pretty solid. Regular Shadow Fiends, Cortis Knights, Yugo Seeker, Icar. So all of those items we're using, if you find the empowered or regular versions, use them. This is a 65 weapon, so you can start using it from level 65. And it doesn't require as much spirit as per se this weapon or this weapon, but those are alternative weapons if you feel like you can spend some more points and you don't need that much resistances for the pets. Feel free to get this weapon or the Padawa's Will. Corruptor set could be good even if you use it just for the 2 set bonus. It's pretty solid. You can try and wear any Corruptor set items. The same goes for this non-set Powders of Mogdrogen. It will very much help you while leveling up with this build. Rift Count leg wraps also something worth mentioning. If you find a helmet such as this, I think one of the quests gives it as a reward. Similar helmet would really help you have some more skeletons and give your pets an extra edge with some damage and resists. This is a very nice weapon to keep in mind while leveling as well. Then you have some medals you could equip while leveling, such as Sanctus Crest or the Nymph's Medal, which I'm not sure I've got here. Let me quickly check. This is Mark of the Nymph. It's also nice, it even gives you an extra heal for 12% plus 400 HP. So we said about the Corruptor set, but I didn't say about the Mogdrogen set. So if you find some of the pieces from it, use it while leveling, it will help you. And later on, when you start getting 75 gear, if you find the non-mythical version of those leg guards, of course use them. The same goes for anything that I'm wearing at the moment. So, another thing worth mentioning would be, while leveling up you might want to be using different augments until you unlock the level 90 and level 70 augments. This is a very nice level 65 augment, Aether and Chaos resistance for the pets and extra HP. Since I'm relying on resist for the pets, I believe you can either go 2 Aether and Chaos resist for the pets augments and 1 poison, or 1 Aether and Chaos, 1 bleeding and 1 poison augment for the amulets and rings. If you decide not to use skeletons, you probably don't need those resist that much, because those pets might die, but they're pretty tanky, so they won't die that often. So then you might want to put something more offensive. Something very important would be the Ravager's Eye for the main hand and offhand. And then something else that you may like would be just to put some other various resists. So if you need pierce, there's 12% piercing, there's also 12% Aether, there's all sorts of different mixtures. Just play around with those any way you like, just to make sure you max out all the resists. I personally prefer to keep my resists slightly off the a bit over the maximum in case my resists get debuffed. But I was experimenting yesterday with those 3% health and 8% constitution augments, so they do give some extra HP and they're pretty solid. So yeah, for the augments, just pick whatever, but key components would be Sacred Plating, Spell Scorch Plating, Blazing Ruby, Living Armor, Titan Plating, Ugdenbok Leather. All of those could give you some nice resistance for yourself to accommodate what we are missing from devotions and gear. So now I'm going to start level 50 shard, 50th degree shard run, just so you can see kind of how the build performs in such an environment. Also, if you want the pets to survive longer, put them on defensive. Make sure to always use pet attack to be able to tell the pets to focus certain targets. And just keep spamming your Devouring Swarm and Ravenous Surge. In the meantime, keep spamming White Fiend. It only has 3 seconds cooldown Always use Call of the Grave and Sovereign when they're ready. And the Wendigo totem could give you some extra healing. You can either use it where the skeletons are or where you are, depending for what you need healing. If you stay behind your pets and just spam your debuffs, you should be more than fine. But if you want some more survivability, you might, as I said, need to rework the devotions. So keep in mind, spamming those skills, telling the pets to focus certain elites and bosses are key, and spamming White Fiend as soon as it's ready. If you stay behind, you would be able to survive more, but there are some enemies that would not be taunted and would end up attacking you, so pay attention to those. Otherwise, if you are distracted too much or too many enemies focus you, you would surely die, regardless what difficulty you're doing. The regular content, such as Bastion of Chaos and all the other roguelike dungeons like the Grove or Steps of Torment or Port Valbury, can be done with ease. Let's say with ease. They are very easy, so you shouldn't worry about those dungeons. The only place where the build starts encountering difficulties is like in some of the Shattered Realm and Crucible levels that are kind of very high. So shard 50 shouldn't be a problem for me, as you can see. Even on the bosses, there aren't too many nasty bosses. So if I'm careful, I'll survive the boss fight. I'll just show some more gameplay here and then I'll quickly skip to the boss fight. What you're seeing now is some footage that I've sped up to 500% speed, just so we could save some time from the build video. And yeah, as you can see, we're clearing easily. The only thing I encountered difficulty while recording this footage was the bosses. There were some nasty ones that actually killed me a few times. But sometimes it would be very easy for me to do the boss fight. This was an Nemesis fight right here. So sometimes it's pretty easy for me to do a boss fight at the end of the shard 50, but sometimes I encounter some tough counter combinations, and that's cases which would require me to take healing devotions such as maybe Giant's Butt or Wayward Soul or the Healing Rain or something similar. Now off to the boss fight. So let's tell the pets to focus a certain target. So if you're kiting like this, rune displacement might be better, because you're just gonna be needing the cooldown. That's why I mentioned sometimes you might wanna use it for like harder content, just replace the metal augment to rune displacement. Now that some of the enemies died, it would be much easier to complete this stage. Look at that, now it's just the Nemesis, which is actually the least difficult to kill for this build, Fabius. Now let's collect the reward. But yeah, if I were to suggest where to use this build, I would suggest using it for shards around 30, 40, 45. I think this is pretty solid for those shard levels. Just to farm some gear and maybe just have some fun while doing it. This is it for this build. Thank you for watching, guys. If you want to be notified when I upload videos for other ARPGs or for this ARPG, such as build videos or guides and so on, you can hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, you can let me know by hitting the button for that as well. Until next time, guys, keep it cool and goodbye.